There are pains that don't scream. They just repeat themselves. They show up in the simplest gestures, in the hurried way you get out of bed, in the rush to get the day over with, in the silence that lingers around the house, even with people nearby. You didn't notice when it happened, but somewhere along the road, joy started to turn down its volume. It didn't leave completely, it just stopped being heard. And maybe you mistook that for normality, believed that maturity was this sort of colorless place where you laugh less, want less, expect less. Maybe you even called it a life phase, the end of a cycle, or even peace. But deep down, it was just absence. Joy doesn't disappear all at once. It hides between one forgotten gesture and another. In the coffee gulped down in a rush, in the shower taken without presence, in the smile reserved only for others. You got used to emotional silence like someone gets used to a dim light in the room, barely seeing, but also not turning it on. And then, without realizing, the days all started to look the same. You stopped expecting the unexpected, stopped asking yourself what you'd like to feel, stopped being surprised by yourself. That's how routine creates an invisible veil between you and your vitality. You're alive, yes, but far from your center, functioning, but not pulsing, taking care of everything, except what sustains you from within. And the most dangerous part, these habits seem harmless. They're quiet, repetitive, even useful, but slowly they silence the soul. Habits that are just too normal, that pull you away from yourself, without making a sound. And that's what we need to talk about now, about the automatic gestures that seem protective, but slowly fade you out, about the small daily surrenders that don't hurt at first, but cost dearly over time, about the unconscious choices that drain the color from life without asking permission, because there's still time to listen to what's been silent, to notice what's been forgotten, to find joy again where you weren't even looking anymore. You can still come back to yourself. You still can. Truly, now, before it's too late to feel everything that's still alive in you. The habit of swallowing your feelings and calling it maturity, swallowing what you feel, taking a deep breath, smiling even with a heavy heart, calling that balance, calling that strength, calling that maturity, and repeating this gesture for years, as if believing that emotional silence is a virtue. But silence, when it becomes the rule, starts to weigh. We've learned from early on to hide the emotions that make others uncomfortable, not to cry in public, not to talk too much, not to bother anyone with how we feel. And that learning became a kind of emotional mask, hard to take off. Slowly, we swapped authenticity for acceptance, presence for endurance, care for containment. The body noticed first. But we don't always listen, because the body speaks, but the emotional side wears out before you hear it. It sends signs. A lump in the throat that won't go away, a stomach ache with no clear reason, an exhaustion that isn't just physical, tightness that shows up precisely when everything should be fine, and you keep going, keep thinking everything's fine, keep doing, solving, helping, but you don't realize. It's been a while since you put yourself last, and there's a moment in the day, maybe always the same, when this happens. It could be when you swallow what you wanted to say, or when you accept what bothers you, just to avoid conflict, or when your gaze dulls, even if no one notices. Maybe you can't even pinpoint it clearly, but there's a daily instant when you abandon yourself. And in that instant, joy starts to retreat. True maturity isn't about silencing everything. It's about knowing when to speak gently, when to hold your own pain with the same patience you offer others. It's necessary to swap strength for presence, because presence cares. Strength often just endures, and enduring without listening eventually breaks. You don't need to be a wall. You don't need to carry everything alone. You don't need to keep swallowing what you feel as if that makes you stronger, because real strength is in feeling, in listening to yourself, in learning to care for yourself from the inside out. Even after so long living outwardly, there's still time to find yourself again. And finding joy often starts with something very simple, telling the truth to yourself, without fear, without guilt, no more hiding. The addiction to a soulless routine. At first, it just seemed like a phase. Busy days, same commitments, repeated tasks. But time went by and you realized that the repetition became a rule and the rule became a prison. The days started to look too much alike. Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, all the same. The same route, the same coffee, the same way of looking at the clock. And without noticing, you stopped expecting something new, stopped surprising yourself, stopped feeling excited about the little things. The routine, which once brought security, started to numb you. Living on autopilot is like walking through a tunnel. You know you're moving, but you no longer see anything around you. You don't smell anything. You don't notice the light. You don't hear yourself anymore. That's why, after 50, so many people say, I don't know what moves me anymore. It feels like everything's lost its shine. I don't feel like doing anything, but maybe it's not a lack of will. Maybe it's just too much repetition, too much of everything, too little of you. What you used to do purely for pleasure became an obligation. What once nourished you from within became just another task. And breaking that inertia doesn't require a revolution. Sometimes it just takes a gesture, a symbolic detail to remind you that you're still here, that your soul still moves, still feels, still desires. Switch the side of the bed. Rearrange your plants. Light a candle where you never have before. Do something useless, just for beauty, because routine needs rituals, not just tasks. Tasks you do for others. Rituals you do for yourself, to remind yourself that life still has texture, that your body still feels, that your soul still pulses. Even if it seems small, this gesture can be the first break in the cycle, a silent signal to your brain, to your heart, to your story. I'm still alive in here, and that is already a beginning. The silence that comes from no longer listening to yourself. At some point along the way, you stopped asking yourself how you're doing, stopped checking in emotionally, stopped noticing when your heart tightened, when your body felt heavy, when your soul asked for a pause. Not because you stopped feeling, but because you got used to moving forward. Just moving forward. Maybe now the days end and you're not even sure what you felt. Maybe you just want them to be over quickly, like someone running to cross an invisible line, like someone living to get through, not to listen to themselves. And that's where a kind of silence is born that has no sound, but weighs like a stone. It's the silence of someone still alive, but lost from themselves. The signs are subtle, but real. You don't really know what you like anymore. You always say, I'm fine, even when you're not. You avoid being alone because deep down, you're afraid of what you might hear inside yourself. And the most delicate thing, this silence doesn't come from the outside. It's not the absence of others. It's the absence of yourself. It's possible to spend entire days surrounded by people and still not hear your own soul. But there are simple and profound ways to find yourself again. One of them is to listen to yourself first thing in the morning, before the world calls you, before the schedule swallows you up, before you dress for the day. Dress in yourself. Place your hand on your chest, close your eyes, breathe slowly, and ask yourself honestly, what do I need today? What's hurting in me that I haven't had the courage to name? What would I like to feel that I no longer allow myself? This kind of listening doesn't require immediate answers. It simply brings you back to yourself. Because being alone isn't the same as being with yourself. Being with yourself is presence. It's acceptance. It's embracing everything that exists within you, even what you'd like to change. And when you start listening to yourself again, even in the silences, something reorganizes inside. Life finds its rhythm. The body slows down. The soul exhales. Maybe no one will notice from the outside, but inside, a reconnection begins. And sometimes, that's all that was missing for joy to find a new way back. The habit of living for others until you forget yourself. At first, it was just care, the sincere desire to be present, to be support, to be a foundation for those you love. It was affection. It was presence. But over time, care turned into self-denial, and self-denial became routine until you realized you were living for others and almost forgetting that you also exist. Because being useful can become an escape, a silent way of distancing yourself from your own pains, of postponing your own desires, of ignoring the questions that hurt too much to answer. You wake up, do, solve, help, and no one notices. But there's a weariness that doesn't come just from the body. It's the exhaustion of someone who's gently erased themselves. And then a hidden guilt appears. The guilt of saying no, of refusing something, of choosing yourself, of setting boundaries. That guilt is subtle, but powerful. It convinces you that prioritizing yourself is selfish, that having time just for yourself is a luxury, that any gesture of self-care is excessive, but living just to be useful also makes you sick because you can keep doing everything right and still feel empty. And reclaiming your own spaces doesn't mean abandoning anyone. It means remembering that you matter too, that your soul also needs a corner to breathe. It's not about big changes. It's about small recoveries, asking for time alone without needing to justify it, going back to doing something that made you happy, even if it seems silly, putting your name in the day's agenda, even if it's just for 15 minutes, even if it's to do nothing. The courage to put yourself in your own schedule starts with this, with the quiet decision to exist beyond what you give, to be more than the role you play, to return to being present for yourself. And it's in that rescue that joy reappears, not as euphoria, but as lightness, as a sigh, as a reminder that behind everything you do, there's still someone who feels, and that someone deserves to live again. Self-abandonment disguised as practicality. There's a kind of self-abandonment that seems practical, functional, justifiable. After all, who has time to care for themselves when there's so much to do? But it's in those small daily neglects that the message starts being sent, even without intention. You don't matter anymore, not with words, with gestures, leaving your hair for later, throwing on any clothes without thinking, eating whatever, however, without even sitting calmly, avoiding the mirror, or worse, looking at yourself and no longer recognizing who you see. At first it seems like just discouragement, or laziness, or too many tasks. But little by little, this kind of abandonment dims the last bit of spark that was left. It weakens the bond with your own body, with your own story, because self-care isn't about vanity. It's about presence, about remembering that you exist, about silently saying, I still see myself, I still feel myself, I still belong to myself. When you slowly stop taking care of yourself, the world also stops looking at you with the attention you deserve, because it all starts within, and it doesn't need to be much. Sometimes it's just a gesture, choosing a top that makes you feel beautiful, applying moisturizer to your face with presence, making yourself a cup of tea as if serving a cherished guest. These everyday rituals, so small, rekindle the connection with what belongs to you. It's not about hiding time, but about honoring it, showing your body that it is still your home, even with marks, even with fatigue, even with the slowness that came with the years. An act of kindness towards yourself can reignite something that seemed lost. Vitality isn't about running. It's about feeling that you still pulse, that you still matter, that you still deserve a space all your own, even if only you know it exists. That space doesn't need to be big, but it does need to be yours. It needs your presence, your scent, your rhythm, your silence. Because in the end, caring for your body is also a reconnection with your soul, a reminder that you are still someone worthy of love, including from yourself. At some point, you might have thought the joy had gone away for good, but it didn't. It just hid, behind habits that protected you, but also dimmed you. It stayed there, covered by silences, camouflaged among obligations, forgotten in automatic gestures, but it never stopped pulsing, because there's a part of you that never forgot how to live, even tired, even hurt, even silent. It waited for you to return to yourself, waited for you to realize you drifted away, waited for you to say, that's enough. I'm coming back. The key, perhaps, is in something very simple, making visible what seemed too small to matter. That coffee sipped slowly, that compliment you accepted without deflecting, that outfit you chose with affection, that yes you said just for you. Because joy isn't noise. It's not euphoria. It's not spectacle. Joy, After 50 has another name. It's called presence. It's called meaning. It's called reconnection. It's knowing that there's still life where you thought there was only routine. It's feeling that there's still beauty where you only saw obligation. It's discovering that there's still time. Yes, there is time to do things different. Today, a single gesture can be the start. Today, a single look at yourself can reopen the door you thought was locked. It doesn't need to be everything all at once, but it does need to be real. It needs to be yours. Because even if joy has been silent for a while, it's still pulsing inside you, waiting for a space to come back. And you can still give it that space. Now, gently, truthfully, lovingly. Yes, you still have time. And there's still so much life waiting for you, even in the silences, even when it feels too late. There still is. If this video touched something inside you, take a deep breath and carry that feeling with you. But don't just keep it to feel. Transform it into a gesture. Today is still a day to change a silent habit. Today is still a day to listen to yourself with more kindness. Today is still a day to come back to yourself. Share this video with someone who also needs the reminder joy hasn't been lost. It's just waiting for a reunion. And subscribe to the channel. Here, every word is a hug for those who think it's too late, but deep down, just need a new beginning. Because after 50, life doesn't end. It truly begins.